online class. Dear students, in the previous class we have discussed about the life process lesson. In that respiratory system we have discussed. Is it right now? So in the respiratory system we have discussed about the types of the respiration. There is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration is nothing but the respiration that takes place in the presence of oxygen, and anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen. So apart from that, how the respiration will be takes place in few organisms like fish and amoeba and frog and human body. So in the human body also, how the respiration will be takes place. These are all the concepts that we have discussed in the previous class. Right now, children? Yes, in this class also we are going to discuss one more very important life process activity, that is we call it as transportation. So what do you mean by transportation? So how the transportation will be takes place in the human body? These are all the concepts we are going to discuss now. So basically the transportation is nothing but the movement of the particles from each and every part of the body. So that is we call it as transportation. So here in the transportation it is also called as circulation. So we have in our body we have a specific circulatory system. So in that circulatory system only the transportation of essential materials like digested food particles, oxygen and exchange of carbon dioxide that will be takes place in our body. So in the circulatory system, so we are going to discuss the human circulatory system is composed of three major parts. How many parts? The human circulatory system is made up of three major parts. That is a heart, second one is blood vessels and the third one is blood. Understand now? So the circulatory system that is composed of three major parts: heart, blood vessels and the third one is blood. So what is the main role of the heart? So the heart will be very helpful to pump the blood from heart to each and every part of the body. Then the blood vessels will be playing a major role in the transportation or carrying the blood from heart to each of the body, each part of the body. So the blood vessels is a specific channel that will be very helpful to transport the blood. Then that blood is a fluid medium that will be consisting of different components. The components is very helpful to transport the body required or cells required materials. So let us discuss what is the function of the heart and how the structure of the heart and how the heart will be pumped to each and every part of the body. So this will be going to discuss now. So heart is a hollow muscular organ as big as your fist. So whatever your fist size, the size of the fist, how much it is there, no? So that much size only the human heart is the size of the human heart. Okay, so then it contracts and relaxes. So it will be contracts and relaxes. As a result of the contraction and relaxation of the human heart, the blood will be transportation will be takes place from each and every cell, tip of the cell or the tip of the body part to top of the body part. The blood circulation will be takes place by the help of heart. Heart will be very helpful to pump the blood to each and every part of the body. So after that, it contracts and relaxes to pump the blood throughout the body. And do you know what is the normal heartbeats per minute? It's approximate 72. So basically we can say 70 to 90 times per minute. So it will be varies depend on your work or depend on your physical activity, what you are doing. For example, when you are running, the heartbeats become varies. So minimum normal temperature or the heartbeat is 72 right now. So that become varies. When you are doing physical activity, the heartbeat varies depend on the what you are doing, the physical activity. So I hope you to understand the heart, basic structure. Now let us discuss deep information related to the heart, how the function, how it will be functions. My dear students, as we already discussed, how the functions and the components of the blood or the circulatory system. So that is a heart, blood vessels and blood. So in that, the heart will be play a major role for the pumping of the blood. How the heart will be pumps the blood? Yes, now we are going to discuss that. So human heart consisting of 4 chambers. The human heart is composed of 4 chambers. So that 4 chambers, the upper chambers what we call it as auricles and the lower chambers what we call it as ventricles. There are the 4 chambers of the heart are there in our body. The heart is made up of 4 chambers. So upper 2 chambers what we call it as auricles and lower 2 chambers what we call it as ventricles. Observe the picture carefully. So it is a heart. So here there are the 4 chambers are there. So upper chambers what we call it as. So it is a chamber, is a separation. So this separation will be very helpful to make the separation of the oxygenated blood and the deoxygenated blood. Okay, so this upper part we call it as auricles and the lower chambers what we call it as ventricles. So specifically they are the left ventricles, so left auricles and right auricles and left ventricles and right ventricles. They are the 4 chambers of heart. So there is a right auricle, right ventricle, left auricle, left ventricle. So what is the major role of these auricles and ventricles? Yes, that we are going to discuss now. So as we know that the heart is made up of 4 chambers. So that is the upper 2 chambers we call it as auricles. So that is we call it as right auricle and left auricle. Okay, and the lower chambers what we call it as right ventricle and left ventricle. Okay, understand no? So here the right atrium or auricle that will be receives the deoxygenated blood from superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. From the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, the heart will be receives the deoxygenated blood. So superior vena cava will be very helpful to get the or absorb the carbon dioxide blood from upper part of our body, and inferior vena cava will be very helpful to absorb the carbon dioxide blood from the lower part of the body. So finally what will be reaches that both the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava will be reaches to the right auricle. Understand no? So apart from that right auricle, when the blood will be heart will be, as we know that the contraction and relaxation will be takes place right now. So when the heart will be contracts, so the deoxygenated blood will be directly reaches to the right ventricle. Okay, so by the help of the right ventricle, again that heart will be contracts, so the right ventricles will be reaches to the blood, whatever the deoxygenated blood is present in the right ventricle, that is reaches to the lungs for the purification. Understand no? At the same time, after the purification, what will be happen? So the by the help of the pulmonary arteries, the deoxygenated blood that will be reaches to the lungs by the help of the pulmonary artery, and then the pulmonary artery is attached to the lungs. Okay, in that the purification of the blood will be takes place. So after the deoxygenated blood, whatever it is present, there is a carbon dioxide rich gas or the carbon dioxide rich blood that will be purified in the lungs and they will be converted into oxygenated blood. Understand no? So that oxygenated blood again that will be comes to the human heart by the help of pulmonary veins. So this pulmonary veins will be receives the oxygenated blood from lungs and directly it will be drops to the left auricle or left article. Okay, after the left auricle, the blood will be reaches to the left ventricle. When the heart will be contracts, that left auricle or left ventricle will be pumps the oxygenated blood by the help of aorta. So aorta is linked to the blood capillaries or the blood vessels. Understand? No? So understand, once again I am going to explain this concept. So whatever the deoxygenated blood is present in our body, that will be receives the heart by the help of superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Understand? No? So that superior vena cava and inferior vena cava will be absorb the deoxygenated blood whatever is present in entire body. Okay, so after that the deoxygenated blood will be reaches to the right auricle. So in the right auricle what will be happen? So when the heart will be contracts and relaxes rhythmically, so the right auricle when it is fulfilled, so the blood will be enters to the right ventricle. Okay, so that right ventricle when it contracts, the blood will be goes to the lungs for the purification process by the help of the pulmonary arteries. By the help of pulmonary arteries, the deoxygenated blood, what you are observing in a green color, that is a blue and a green color, that is a deoxygenated blood. Just for understanding purpose, I mentioned as a different colors here. Okay, so this deoxygenated blood will be reached to the lungs by the help of pulmonary artery. So in the lungs, what will be happen? The carbon dioxide rich gas is converted into oxygen rich gas. At the time of the respiration, the process of exchange of gases will be takes place in the lungs. That phenomenon we have discussed in the respiration right now. So this respiration will be very helpful for the exchange of the gases. So after the deoxygenated blood conversion, what will be happen? The blood will be converted into oxygenated blood right now. So how the heart will be receives the oxygenated blood is from the lungs. This pulmonary vein is a special modified organ present in the circulatory system that will be receives the oxygenated blood from lungs to heart. That will be carries the oxygenated blood from lungs to human heart. So it will be drops the oxygenated blood to the left auricle. Understand? No? So after that left auricle will be contracts. So again the blood, oxygenated blood will be comes to the left ventricle. So when the left ventricle will be contracts, that oxygenated blood will be comes out from the body by the help of aorta. This aorta will be very helpful to transport the oxygenated blood to each and every part of the body. This aorta will be followed by the huge number of blood vessels. These blood vessels will be carries the oxygenated blood. My dear students, just you have to give a clue. Just imagine, just I am only the heart. So the right side, what is the part? When I am going to divide my body into half, so the right side of the part will be carries the deoxygenated blood, and the left side of the heart will be carries the oxygenated blood. Half of the body heart. So half of the part, that heart half part, that is the right side of the heart, will be completely specifically meant for the deoxygenated blood transportation, and the left side blood will be specifically meant for the transportation of oxygenated blood. My dear students, one thing you should remember, whatever the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, we call it as veins. So the veins will be carries the deoxygenated blood. Here to some totally difference is there. Pulmonary artery, except the pulmonary artery, remaining whatever the veins are there, or except the pulmonary vein, remaining whatever the veins are there, superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, they will be carries the deoxygenated blood from the body. Except the pulmonary vein. What is the main function of the pulmonary vein? The pulmonary vein will be carries the oxygenated blood from lungs to heart. Okay, and as we know that aorta will be carries the oxygenated blood from heart to all the parts of the body except the pulmonary aorta. This aorta will be carries the deoxygenated blood. This will be carries the deoxygenated blood. Understand? This is the very difference between the pulmonary artery and pulmonary vein. Understand now? I hope you understand the structure and functioning of the human heart. So let us move on to the next very important component of the circulatory system, that is we call it as blood vessels and as well as blood. My dear students, the blood is also one of the major component of the circulatory system. Right now, so again the blood has been consisting of three major components, that is red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets and plasma. Understand now? The blood having four major components again, that is we call it as plasma, red blood cells, that is also called as RBC, white blood cells, that is also called as WBC, and last one is platelets. Okay, so what is the major role of the plasma and what is the major role of the red blood cells? So let us discuss now. So the blood will be contains a fluid, that is we call it as plasma. So the blood will be contains a fluid, that is what we call it as plasma, and it is a colorless. There is no color for this. It is a colorless fluid present in the blood. Okay, so this will be very helpful to carry, store the unwanted waste substances, contains water and some other amino acids, fatty acids, proteins, whatever our body needs. Okay, so the next one is red blood cells. It is also called as RBC. So this red blood cells is the most abundant cells present in our body. Understand? No? And it will be contains a pigment, that is what we call it as hemoglobin. So the red blood cells will be contains a pigment, what we call it as? The pigment what we call it as? Hemoglobin. So this hemoglobin has a capacity to hold the oxygen in the blood, and this hemoglobin pigment will be play a major role for the transportation of oxygen to each and every part of the body. Understand? No? Without the oxygen or without the hemoglobin pigment, the blood does not have a capability to absorb the oxygen. Understand? No? So that's why this hemoglobin pigment will be play a major role for the absorption of oxygen and transportation of the oxygen to each and every part of the body. Understand? No? Next, the second one, that is we call it as white blood cells. One more very important pigment, that is we call it as white blood cells. So white blood cells are colorless cells without the absence of hemoglobin. Without hemoglobin. So in the red blood cells, we have discussed the presence of pigment hemoglobin right now. So in the WBC, we didn't identify the hemoglobin pigment. So in the WBC, there is nothing but white blood cells. The hemoglobin pigment is absent. Then what is the role of the WBC, or what is the role of the white blood cells? Yes, it is play a very important role, my dear students. Just listen carefully. This WBC or white blood cells very helpful to fight against the diseases. So whatever we have the immunity power. So what is the main role of the immunity power? So this will be kill the disease causing agents right now. So this killing of the disease causing agents because of the presence of white blood cells present in our body. So these white blood cells will be very helpful to kill the foreign bodies or kill the disease causing agents. So hence this WBC will be play a major role to protect our body from various kinds of the diseases. The next one is one more very important pigment present in the blood, that is we call it as platelets. So platelets is also a small cells present in the body or present in the blood. This will be very helpful for clotting of the blood, and it will be prevents the bleeding. It will be prevents the bleeding. So these are all the major components of the blood. So there are the four components: plasma, white blood cells, red blood cells and platelets. Plasma is a fluid, colorless fluid present in the blood. So that will be very helpful to store the water and carbon dioxide and waste materials. and then the red blood cells will play a major role for the transportation of oxygen. Why? Because it is present in a pigment, that is what we call it as hemoglobin. So this hemoglobin will be very helpful to absorb the oxygen present in the lung or blood. That will be very helpful for the transportation. And then the next very important component of the blood, that is we call it as white blood cells, or it is also called as WBC. So this WBC will be very helpful to fight against the diseases. And then the platelets will be very helpful to clotting of the blood and prevent the bleeding. So my dear students, these are all the major components of the blood. So okay, in this session we have discussed about the complete circulatory system in the human body. How the circulatory system will be takes place, what is the major role of the heart, and the different chambers of the heart, that is the left auricle, right auricle, and then left ventricle and right ventricle. These are all the concepts and how it will be works. These are all the concepts that we have discussed in this class. Dear students, is there any clarifications regarding today's topic? Please send a message or make a phone call. Okay, so complete the given homework and send through WhatsApp without fail. Please stay home, stay healthy. Thank you. Jai Shri Gurudev.